So, Ani Bojo, welcome to Ancestral Ascensions. We have a guest with us today, Charlee from NakdBasics, and I'm going to let her fully introduce herself and her business and let us know what she is up to.
Hello, good morning. So I'm Charlie Roy. I own NakdBasics here in Owen Sound. So NakdBasics, I do plant-based skincare. I've been in this for about 9 years now. So I had a storefront downtown, a brick and mortar, and I'm now working from home since the pandemic, but it's all plant-based skincare. I do a lot of the foraging for all of the products myself. And that's kind of the biggest draw, I think, for me now is the education and the workshops for the foraging and the plant identification. So it started with the skincare, but it's kind of going into the direction of workshops with obviously still doing skincare.
Nice. Awesome.
hmm
And so, what is your lineage? How did you come to get into this type of work?
So my upbringing, I was raised in obviously this area. My mom is German, so she's a first generation German. And then on my dad's side, there was Indigenous, but he passed away before I got really any questions answered. And he was also adopted, which adds an extra layer of difficulty to research. Ever since I can remember, I was always in the nature. I was outside, I was into nature and into fishing and hiking and I would catch myself burning things like sticks and different types of plants and herbs, and I didn't really understand why. And then as I got older, I started to understand a lot more of, I think, more so of the little things that I was doing that I thought were just like playful little innocent things. But then as I got older, I realized there might have been more of like a deep-seated something going on there that I was trying to grasp at and didn't understand why. So now in my 30s, I have a better understanding of my background to some degree. And I was also actually a nurse in Cape Croker and Wyerton area. And I felt very at home there and very at peace in those areas. So it all kind of started to come full circle. So now I'm on my journey to figure out more about my dad's side of the family with what information I can.
I hear you. I totally understand about your dad's side. So I'm Anishinaabe through my mom, and I do believe that I'm Haudenosaunee on my father's side,
Mhm.
as his mother comes from Quebec in that area,
Yeah.
and yeah, and he was the same thing. So his parents passed away when he was very young, like quite young, under 7 years old, and then he was raised in foster home and boys home in Toronto. So,
Yeah, to find out how,
he
like,
always knew he had that lineage, but he really didn't get too far with it. And I'm still looking. So
yeah,
if anyone out there knows a Muriel Cousins and any relation to her,
yeah.
any information would definitely be appreciated. Do you know what was your dad's name? Maybe
So my
he.
dad was, yeah, he was Chuck Johnston, but his name at birth was Chuck Lang or Charles Lang. So Chuck
Okay.
and Charlie, hence the name that I got.
Okay.
And his dad was Ross Lang, so Ross and then Lang. And all I got from his dad, my grandfather, who I never got to meet, had another family, so another daughter and stuff. And I was
Right.
talking with her after both Ross and my dad had passed away. And all she had was Algonquin Indian. That's all she was told.
Okay.
Ottawa area.
Yeah. So
hmm
yeah, in Ottawa area they call themselves Algonquin over there, but really
Yeah,
they're part of the Anishinaabe Nation. So
right.
the Anishinaabe Nation is quite large.
Yes.
It's one of the largest nations on Turtle Island, I would say. I
Yeah.
venture a guess out there on that, and
Yeah.
not just because I'm
Yeah.
partial, of course. But yeah, we have quite a large nation, and what I've always been taught by my ancestors is that if your family have been on Turtle Island, North America here, that the odds of your having indigenous roots from Turtle Island are pretty good,
Oh, for
especially if
sure.
there's a couple of generations. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my dad, like, we used to go camping in Cape Croker every year when I was younger, but
Hmm.
then he was very disassociated from the indigenous culture. Like, he never really talked about it, he never brought it up. And I think a lot of it came from, like, he had a stigma along with many others, unfortunately, with like alcohol and abuse, and you just want to get a tax card. Like, there was a lot of things there that I think he held a lot of anger, it seemed, towards, but I never understood that growing up, why there was so much hostility against the indigenous culture and the
Mhm.
indigenous people of this area. And I think that's where I kind of got more interested in like why he was harboring so much of that anger, because I didn't understand it. Because then we go to Cape Croker and he was like best friends with everybody.
Mhm.
So it was a very disconnected, it was confusing when I was younger, very
Yeah.
confusing.
Well, I think a big part of that, my grandfather has a book called Not Wolf Nor Dog. And I think that the reason why many of our people have a hard time identifying or really feeling that they have a right to identify with who they are is because, we've never got to identify who we are.
Right,
This has just
right.
been a government policy through the
Painted with
Indian
the same
Act
brush.
since
Yeah,
1876, right? And
yeah,
so they began to identify who our people were when we always had that prior to,
right.
right? So you at one time, so how did you end up getting into like the herbs in general? So in your professional life, I would say.
Yeah, like growing up, my mom, she's a nurse. She always used herbs a lot of the time before she would go to medications. So it
Mhm.
was kind of right there, right from when I was little. But as I got older, I moved to the city. I was in the Toronto area for about 4 years, and I worked at a place called Goodness Me. So it's like a natural health food store. And I was in the supplements department there, and it really sparked some interest for me into supplements and different herbal preparations and stuff like that, and skincare. So I had struggled myself with acne for most of my teenage life, like horribly. My face was like purple and blue and craters. It was awful.
Mhm.
Um, so when I worked at Goodness Me, there was a bunch of skincare products there. And I remember saying to some of the girls, like, I could do this. I could make my own. I could totally run with this because I enjoyed it so much. And instead of selling other people's stuff, I wanted to sell my own. So
Right.
then fast forward a few years, I did some modeling and stuff in the city, and then I moved home after my dad passed away in 2013. So when I moved up here, I started nursing school because I always kind of had a calling for taking care of people and that nurturing side of things.
Mhm.
So I started nursing school, but while I was in nursing school, realized how damn expensive it was. So
Mhm.
I started up my skincare company through a place in town here called the Summer Company. So they gave me, I think it was $1,500 grant.
Mhm.
So they give you money to start up a business, and if it works, great. They give you another $1,500 at the end of the summer. And in that summer, I was able to make my tuition back for nursing school. So I realized I had something.
Nice.
Um, it was a lot of research. I did some courses on aromatherapy at the very beginning just to get a good understanding of it. I was already in nursing school, which helped with the anatomy and physiology of the body. So I was able to apply kind of both of those things together and create some really, really good products.
Mhm.
And it just took off. And then all of a sudden I was in markets doing pop-ups. I was all over the place. Um, Once I did all of that, I think it was only a couple years later that I actually opened my first brick and mortar. So I went from aromatherapy and like a couple little side courses here to building up quite a successful business. Then I went into herbalism as well. So I went to an online distance course through Dominion Herbal College in British Columbia. So
Okay.
I did all my schooling through them to get a better grasp of herbalism. And then I just kind of kept going with it.
Nice. Awesome. And so
Mhm.
now you just work from home, and do people go to see you at home, or how does that work?
No, like they come for pickups and stuff, but I
Okay.
don't have like a physical storefront anymore. So I opened a store back, it was 2016, I believe, was my first location, or 2017 on Third Avenue East. It was
Hmm.
a tiny, tiny little shop. It was so cute. And within about 6 months, I realized I had to grow and I had to get something bigger because I was running out of space. So then I moved over to Second Ave East. And then within a year, I expanded that store again. And then I had double stores. Then I got pregnant with twins. So I was on strict bed rest in London Hospital for almost 7 weeks. So my friend and I at the time, we opened up a Collingwood location while I was there because I was going crazy and I need more projects to do while I was just on bed rest.
Right.
And yeah, so we had the stores. And then right at the beginning of COVID, I had this like internal gut instinct that things were about to spiral and go south. And I pulled out of the storefront and I closed it down. I bought a house in town. My ex-husband and I had separated. I bought a place in town and I renovated the attic to be my workspace.
Okay. Nice.
So
Nice.
now I do everything from home. I've got a beautiful custom greenhouse in the backyard, lots of garden beds. My mom and stepdad have about I think it's about 80 acres or so of property, but we use like all of her gardens to grow a bunch of stuff. Just family friends have little gardens for me too. So
Nice.
instead of having to go and try and find crown land to forage on, it's nice to have my own property.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And so I guess your business, what about the skincare products? How do you educate people about that? Do you go to do you collaborate with other businesses, or how can people get a hold of you in terms of doing a workshop?
Yeah, so I get contracted out to certain places. I do a lot with Elephant Thoughts out in Durham. They're great. So they actually have like a beautiful space there that I'll go out and we'll go to the barn or we'll go out into the stone house. And they bring in groups of different educators. Last couple years has been students, a lot of high school students from like Flesherton area. That was really fun.
Okay.
So I can teach people how to make their own skincare, how to do proper foraging for what they're looking for, but on a very basic level. So I don't get crazy into the chemistry and all that stuff. It's just very, very basic.
Yeah.
And just empowering people to be able to make their own stuff. That's the biggest one. So I do workshops, but then if someone wants a private workshop, it's a little harder now because I'm so busy with everything else, but I can still offer a private workshop for a group. And then same thing, they just tell me where to go and what day and what time, and I just make it happen. I've started doing plant identification walks too. So I'll take a group out and we'll go to like Bubble Grove in just outside Bognor Marsh. There's this beautiful space. I don't know if you've seen it on my stories, but it's this big geodome.
Okay.
Sorry, my cat needs to be center of attention too. So it's a big geodome in the middle of the woods, but she's got like a cedar sauna, a huge picnic tent, and then 7 kilometers of perfectly maintained trails that I can forage off of and teach people identification. So I've been doing a lot of my stuff out there.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I may have heard of this geodome
Yeah.
years ago now. So that would be more interesting. I'd be interested in learning more about that.
Absolutely. I can
What was
send you
the place called again?
Bubble Grove.
Bubble Grove.
Yeah, it's Alexis there and her husband. She's got a beautiful space. But yeah, I've been doing workshops out there and people can rent that space too, just for themselves as a getaway. But I've been doing the plant walks and stuff out there because there's such a huge diversity of plants. And then I can teach people on the same property how to forage it. And then we can take it back to the dome and cook with it or make tea or whatever we're doing.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so if there were something that you would like to share with others, a piece of advice or something to help them along with their connection to spirit, like I think that, just in terms of you talking about how you've always sort of been attracted to plants, that is your higher self or your own soul that's asking you to, do what your soul's purpose is, your calling. I think that is the ancestral ascension. So if there was some advice that you would like to share with others, what would that be?
Well, coming from someone who used to be very negative, like your typical teenage runaway, I knew everything. I think everyone has their own journey at their own time. Mine happened in my 20s. That's when I actually kind of came full circle and realized who I was becoming. But I didn't actually find who I was until I was in my 30s. It took a lot of hiccups to get there. So I think my biggest takeaway for if I could go back in time and kind of prep myself for what was coming, it's more listen to your gut intuition. And I think a lot of us lose that because we're so focused on social media and what other people are doing and comparing our lives with other people. We kind of lose ourselves. We forget who we actually are, or we'll be trying to find who we really are, but we're getting lost because we're kind of clouded by everyone else's decisions and what they're doing. So take some quiet time, whether it's taking a walk in the woods or whatever it is that brings you joy that can kind of calm your brain, and check in with yourself on a daily basis, because it's a big part of things that I think most people they're lacking because life is so busy and we're, your 9 to 5 job or whatever job you're doing. No one actually takes that time anymore to self-reflect on how they're feeling and what parts of their body they're feeling certain things and triggers. And it's taken me years to get there.
Awesome. It's funny. So I always I pull an oracle card from the Ancestors and Angels deck, and as you were speaking, I was shuffling, and the Trust Your Instincts card came out.
That's fun.
So
That's amazing.
absolutely. So trusting your instincts. This is this animal guardian here. And yeah, I thought that was pretty
Perfect
fitting.
timing. Yeah, that's great. And it is,
Yeah.
it's such a simple thing, but we forget it sometimes because like life gets busy. I get it, but you have to do those self-reflection check-ins to really see what's triggering you and what's motivating you.
Yeah, and this is what exactly what it is. It's about trusting your spirit within to learn more about yourself and your talents.
Mhm. Yeah,
You
that's
know,
it.
and so when I think about that, it actually reminds me of the seven grandfather teachings where with humility, you know, it says with humility that is our responsibility. It's our
Mhm.
responsibility to ensure that we find what our gifts are so that we can share them with the world. And that's what that humility is all about. So
Absolutely.
we actually have a responsibility as being
Mhm.
you know, a member of the human race, you know, to find out
Yeah,
what those gifts are and to share them with the world. So absolutely,
that's
trusting your instincts. Can't get a better card than that.
perfect. That works
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
That's
Okay,
great.
well, thank you so much. You
Thank
take
you so
care.
much. Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.